Good evening. The time is 7:04 p.m. on Wednesday, January 19th, 2022, and I'd like to call this Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force meeting to order. The first order of business is the appointment of chair and vice chair. With the task force consent, we may deal with each of these two appointments separately. May I please have a motion to nominate a chair for year 2022 of the Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force? Moved by Noor and seconded by Harold. Councillor Kim. So we are moving that a task force member be elected as chair for the year 2022 of the Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force for the 2018 to 2022 term.
Through you, Mr. Chair, do we have a name of
Yes, we do.
A nominee?
We are. I would like to move that Noor be appointed as chair of the task force. That is the motion. My apologies. Again, do we have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Jenny and seconded by Edleen. Thank you very much. That carries, I believe. Is that a question, Noor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you could call a vote.
Can we please have a vote on the motion to nominate Noor as chair of the task force?
All those in favor?
Please raise your hand. And that does carry.
Any opposed?
Can I kind of oppose momentarily? Sorry, can I say something? I don't know if I'm allowed to jump in here. Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. And sorry, Linda, if I'm interrupting the process of the vote, but I just wanted to ask if there was anybody else who was interested in being nominated for the chair position, especially some of our new members, if anyone is particularly interested in trying out the role. Jenny?
I suppose.
I'm sorry, who had a comment? Was that Shivani?
I did. Is there a lag in my? Oh, sorry. I was just saying I support the decision, Noor.
Oh. Okay. And Jenny, would you be interested in being nominated if I nominated you?
That's very kind of you, Noor. I don't know if I feel in a position of understanding of the role fully. In my everyday job, this is not something that we do, so this is somewhat new to me, but I would be willing to learn in a different capacity, maybe as the vice, but probably not with the responsibility of the chair, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. Yes. Okay. Then please proceed, Mr. Chair.
So is the idea that we want to put a motion on the floor to appoint Noor as the chair and Jenny as the vice chair? Is that the suggestion? Noor?
That would be my suggestion. I don't know if we're doing a separate vote for the vice chair.
We are.
Okay.
So
excuse me, excuse me, Mr. Chair. You can handle them together or separately if that's the consensus of the committee.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. So then let's put a vote on the floor to approve the appointment of Noor as the chair and Jenny as the vice chair. To a vote, please. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. And congratulations. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legislative Services? Moved by Noor and seconded by Jenny. Does anybody have questions or comments on the agenda? I don't see any. So let's call a vote, please. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Councillor Kim had made a suggestion that we appoint a deputy chair. Councillor Kim, could you please explain the role of a deputy chair for the task force?
Well, through you, Madam Chair, now that Noor is the chair. Well, I mean, we already chose the deputy, the vice chair.
Okay.
Didn't we choose Jenny?
We did. I was not clear if by deputy chair you were referring to the same role as the vice chair. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations?
Sorry, 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 Mark. Would you mind, now that Noor is the chair, would you mind passing the chair to Noor? And Noor will assume the role of the chair.
I can
Thank
do
you.
that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I guess this is effective immediately kind of a thing. Or is it something that, because I don't have the script that Mark has, like the what you say for each thing. Do you have that, Mark? Could you forward that to me? Thank you.
Linda, would it be possible to just have Mark continue on for tonight's meeting, and Noor can carry on the subsequent meeting?
I would be okay with that if
Yeah. Okay.
that is permitted.
So why don't you continue, Mark?
Is that okay, Linda?
If the committee agrees, yes. I mean, yes, Noor, you could assume that role at the next meeting, if that's preferred.
Thank you for clarifying that. So I will continue on with the agenda, and we are at the point where we want to confirm if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest. I don't believe there are any. So may we please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of November 17th, 2021. Moved by Noor and seconded by Jenny. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes? There are no questions or comments. I'll call a vote. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. We have no delegations this evening. We do have matters for consideration. We have a presentation by Alicia Lozon, Equity and Inclusion Specialist, York Regional Police Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Bureau. Welcome, Alicia, and please be reminded you have 10 minutes. Thank you. May I have a mover and seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion? Moved by Noor, seconded by Shivangi. That the presentation regarding the York Regional Police Inclusive Policing Action Plan be received, and that the Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force comments regarding the York Regional Police Inclusive Policing Action Plan be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. Alicia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. First off, thank you so much for inviting me to this meeting. And before I begin, I would like to also introduce Superintendent Ed Villamere, who leads our Professionalism, Leadership, and Inclusion Office, as well as Superintendent Ryan Hogan, who leads our Community Services, both at York Regional Police. They join me here this evening. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. There we go. Oops. Oh, okay. Start the slideshow. All right then. So thank you again, everyone, for inviting me to this meeting and to share with you some information on York Regional Police's inclusion strategy. This presentation will cover a number of areas, an overview of the Inclusive Policing Action Plan accomplishments, and the path forward for 2022. The Police Services Board Equity and Inclusion Policy directs the Chief of Police to implement an inclusion strategy, and we call it the Inclusive Policing Action Plan. And the plan covers these 4 areas that you see here on the screen: employment, professional development and training, communications, and service delivery. And the aim of the action plan is to promote equity and inclusion throughout York Regional Police. It also aims to prevent discrimination and harassment in the workplace and out in the community. And part of the action plan also contains an area on anti-racism, which we will get to. The primary focus of the plan is on York Regional Police's pillar of our people, which is our members. And from there, it transitions out into the community. A shared goal for the organization that you see there in the gray box is applied to all of our members. And that means that everyone in York Regional Police owns this plan. And there are 4 pathways with 10 objectives that are manageable and achievable. And each pathway and its objectives are action-based. And they relate to such things as diversity employment and talent management, assessment of the workplace demographics, training and education, wellness, oversight, and anti-racism. Let's highlight some of the actions that we have worked on over the past couple of years. We're undergoing a review of our employment processes to ensure that we have a talented, diverse workforce. Over the past couple of years, both uniform and civilian recruiting have completed a review of certain areas of the recruiting processes using a tool called Gender-Based Analysis Plus, which originates from the federal government. Changes have been made in some areas of the constable selection process, removing identified barriers for diverse candidates and females. For example, the Uniform Recruiting Unit oversees total administration of the physical fitness tests. Applicants who feel challenged by the physical testing components are offered guidance and mentorship throughout the process. Our Civilian Recruiting Unit has examined language used in job postings. Commitment to finding the best people also includes strategies to attract diverse pools of applicants. It's not enough to list qualifications, key duties, and add a disclaimer about being an equitable employer. And for those of you wondering, well, what exactly is Gender-Based Analysis Plus? It's an analytical process to assess how diverse groups may experience policies, programs, and initiatives. The plus in GBA Plus considers multiple other identity factors such as mental or physical disability, race, national or ethnic origin, indigeneity, age, language, and sexual orientation. GBA Plus also considers systemic barriers. Recruiting is one of the many steps towards equity and inclusion in employment, and we aim to level the playing field for all talent. The People and Talent Project was created to identify opportunities and remove possible bias and barriers, and make recommendations about staff development, the promotional process, and the performance appraisal system. One of the objectives is to source a talent management system, TMS. The TMS is a software application that would leverage employee data to make fast, transparent, and effective talent management decisions in career development, training and development, and performance management. Government, police, community organizations, and individuals, they must be committed to work together to stem hatred in society. And it's with this that over the past 2 years, York Regional Police has hosted a hate crime conference and awareness workshop for its members to learn about the community-wide impact of hate crimes and hate bias incidents. Community impact sessions focused on anti-Black racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and anti-Asian hate crime. I will also add that York Regional Police's Hate Crime Prevention Unit has delivered hate crime training to most municipal bylaw officers within York Region. Additionally, I'm a committee member on the Town of Georgina's Equity and Diversity Advisory Committee and the City of Markham's Race Relations Committee. And I've arranged for our hate crime team to present to those committees. If this committee is interested in receiving a presentation, please reach out to me and I can arrange. Looking forward into 2022, York Regional Police's Professionalism, Leadership, and Inclusion Office, which reports directly to the Chief of Police, will oversee the Inclusive Policing Action Plan and the Anti-Racism Action Plan. It's important to emphasize that although we have an office that oversees equity, diversity, and inclusion work, this work really is the responsibility of everyone within the organization. Now let's focus on YRP's Anti-Racism Action Plan. This plan originated from York Regional Police's African Caribbean Canadian Internal Support Network. An internal support network is made up of internal YRP members who support each other both personally and professionally. This plan has led to the formation of YRP's Anti-Black Racism Internal Working Group, our Anti-Racism Working Group, and our Anti-Racism Training Working Group. YRP's Anti-Black Racism Internal Working Group is not only made up of Black YRP members, but it also members of diverse backgrounds and experiences. Their purpose is to listen and learn from experiences of Black members across York Regional Police with the goal of making substantive change, to identify barriers and actionable solutions within the areas of recruitment, selection, promotion, development, provide recommendations relating to anti-Black racism, which will assist in mitigating risk, attracting talent, encouraging diversity of thought, and increase community representation within YRP. Their first project will be to examine the social, cultural, and systemic barriers that affect anti-Black racism within YRP. At around the same time that our Anti-Black Racism Internal Working Group was being developed, several Black community groups submitted 51 recommendations to the York Regional Police Services Board. And these recommendations aim to eradicate racism and strengthen public confidence and trust within policing. YRP established a Black Community Consultative Roundtable in 2021, which is made up of community partners, YRP senior leaders, and some members of our African Caribbean Canadian Internal Support Network. We meet regularly to talk about actions YRP can take to be fully inclusive and accessible to Black communities. We're in the consultative process to address the recommendations brought forward by the Black Community Consultative Roundtable. YRP's Anti-Racism Working Group leads YRP's Anti-Racism Action Plan. And so far, this is what we have achieved. We've launched a multi-year anti-racism training program for all YRP members. Phase 1 includes the Ontario Human Rights Commission's e-learning, Call It Out, Racism, Racial Discrimination, and Human Rights. And this gives us a historical perspective of racism in Canada and also lays the foundation of what racism and anti-racism racism means. Phase 2 is e-learning again, and it focuses on York Region, our community and our people. And we engage with community partners and our own members to share their lived experiences. For example, we engaged with Black Youth York Region and the City of Markham's Race Relations Committee, and we asked a member from each of those committees to lend their voice to anti-Black racism experiences, as well as anti-Asian racism experiences. Phase 3 intends to consult with a vendor to help us design and deliver anti-racism training to our members, and this includes anti-Black racism. And finally, Phase 4 is all about sustainability to keep the issue top of mind. Training is not a one-time thing, and it will focus on anti-Indigenous racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and anti-Asian racism. We're also looking at the collection of race-based data in employment and service delivery. We now have a talent management system that can help us collect employment race-based data. And we've created a working group to see how best to collect data in service delivery. As mentioned, we have a Black Community Consultative Roundtable, and plans have begun to host our first anti-racism forum. Lastly, I'd like to emphasize York Regional Police's internal support networks and what they do for our members and the community. Mentorship. When we talk about advancing diverse representation throughout the ranks, ISNs provide mentorship for our members. Recruiting to reflect York Region demographics. The African Caribbean Canadian ISN has partnered with our Uniform Recruiting Unit to host symposiums for Black communities. Diversity in law enforcement is a necessary ingredient to ensure healthy communities. The outcome is a representative police service that helps members of communities feel safer, seen, and included. Volunteerism and community outreach. Our newest ISN, which is East Southeast Asian, was created in response to anti-Asian hate crime. Recently, ESIA, as we call it, delivered fraud presentations to 3 seniors' homes. Our African Caribbean Canadian Association, ISN, is involved with our Black Community Consultative Roundtable. And both our African Caribbean Canadian and East Southeast Asian ISN, well, they sponsor scholarships and support charities through fundraising. Social, cultural, and special events. YRP annually hosts our Black History Month and our Asian Heritage Month to highlight and celebrate cultures that is accessible to everyone. If you'd like to connect with one of our ISNs, again, please contact me and let me know. So what are the takeaways for York Regional Police? Anti-racism, it's not a checkbox. The community and York Regional Police members want action and they want solutions. It's not enough to write strategies and reports. We all need to do the work to make change. Sometimes this work, anti-racism work, it needs to come from your heart and not always from your head. We all need to show up with empathy and compassion, or people will see right through you. And lastly, together, we are more. We need allies to advocate and use their power and privilege for good. We hope that you can see that our path forward aims to sustain an organization that is inclusive, safe, and healthy for our members and our community. Thank you. If there are any comments or feedback or questions that you have, I'm happy to answer them at this time. And if not, you have my email at, oh, sorry, Edeline. Oh, through you, Mr. Chair, Edeline.
Hi, just very quickly, as part of your action plan, as part of the action plan, there was the bullet point there about collecting race-based data. Would you be able to kind of provide an example? Like what data is that?
Sure. So we're looking at employment, So again, we want to see the movement of YRP members throughout the organization, and where are the barriers and the gaps. As far as service delivery goes, you may be familiar that Toronto Police has been collecting race-based data, and they formed a consultative roundtable. And publicly, Statistics Canada and the Canadian Association Chiefs of Police is working on a partnership which they hope to develop across the country with all police services to how to adequately collect race-based data for those ethnic and Indigenous groups that are involved in crime. So that is something that we definitely want to be involved in. I don't have any of the details at this moment, but it is definitely out there for the public to see as to what Statistics Canada and the Canadian Association Chiefs of Police is intending to do. And they have consulted with communities across Canada as well as police services to better inform them as to how to collect this data.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is similar to Adeline's. So Alicia, it's hard to gauge how well a program or project is going unless we have data. And so how good is the data collection? Are people submitting? Like, is the participation of submitting data, is that high? And are you gathering that information annually so that you can see the results of your program?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So thank you for that excellent question. It is really about the data, and it's about equity seeking data as well. And so for York Regional Police, some of our data points are gained through a census and inclusion survey that we have run back in 2018 and most recently in 2021. And it's only as good as the response rate as well to give us an indication of demographics and those feelings of inclusion. So with demographics, how do we compare to the York Region population or the Ontario population or Canadian population? And then those feelings of inclusion are perspective based. So how do members feel about the workplace based on certain questions that are asked of them? We also have data points that are based on our business planning process as well. So we would have community surveys, and actually we are going through our business planning process and canvassing committees and communities and businesses as to how does YRP, what is the data showing us around service delivery? So that's another way that we can also collect data, as well as certain projects that we work on within the service. They might be very member specific. So we will hold focus groups, surveys, etc., to again gather those data points to help inform us. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. And through you, Mr. Chair, so specifically in terms of hiring practices and the percentage of the YRP force that are of various groups, is that also stats that you guys are using as a metric?
Yes, through the Equity and Inclusion Police Services Board report, I do report on diverse hires as well as female candidates because I had mentioned before that we were reviewing our processes. So I get that information from the Uniform Recruiting Unit, and I am able to report on not all of the numbers, but to show that we are actually increasing in our applicants, like in our diverse applicants over year to year. I don't have a spreadsheet, but I do put out those percentages. And again, you can access the Police Services Board report through our York Regional Police Services Board website, and the information is there for you.
Okay, great, thank you. And just the last point is that the town of Aurora just recently initiated its own diversity, equity, and inclusion program, and or momentum, or whatever you want to call it. But we've identified that that's an integral part of where we want to be, and so if you want to get in touch with our HR manager, and I'll certainly ask him to reach out to you. And to collaborate and see what's working and what's not. And it's too early for us. We just started it ourselves, so there's no results at this point. We're only a few weeks, a couple months in, but we would certainly like to collaborate with YRP.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. That would be excellent. Like, as I said, I sit on the Town of Georgina's Equity and Advisory Committee. I sit on the City of Markham's Race Relations Committee. And if there is an opportunity for a YRP member to sit on this committee, or, as you said, to connect with town staff, absolutely, we invite it, because it is all about that cross-sectoral collaboration and information sharing that we find is very reciprocal for both organizations. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shivani, I apologize. I may have missed a question or comment from you earlier. Did you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, my question was aligned with what Councillor Kim asked as well. I did wanted to understand, especially on sustainment, especially with the programs that are promoted and put out. How are they ensuring that they are sustaining, and what data and what statistics are being collected to measure that the success of those. So I think that question was answered with the question that Councillor Kim did. So I just lowered my hand.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments, Nora?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Alicia. I wanted to clarify one thing and then add a comment in. I guess, is the scope of your work mostly focused on, I guess, like equity, diversity, inclusion within the workplace, so like within the organization, or also like broader within the community?
Thank you for that question. So yes, my primary focus is on our members. It's on the organization. Equity inclusion needs to start within the organization. We need to get it right. Not that anything is wrong. We need to, make sure that we are an inclusive organization, and that transitions out into the community. So it is very important for me to be in tune and in touch with the community to see and hear and learn about what is going on, and whether or not we are delivering our services the way that we should be, and those opportunities for improvement as well. So that's why I do sit on some of these municipal committees as well.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's very, very important to focus on diversity and inclusion within the organization and make sure that that culture is established to be able to kind of, I guess, spread out even further. And at the same time, I think it's also very, very crucial to address, systemic racism within the organization, within the institution of policing itself. So looking at the policies and practices within policing that need to be modified to reduce the instances of racism that often do happen, unfortunately. And I think it's really great to hear that you guys have I can't remember the exact name, but the kind of community roundtable that's put forward recommendations for, things that might need to be changed within the organization, and to kind of put in that accountability piece as well. So I'm curious if that's something that's like the results of like those conversations and action plans are something that's publicly available, or is it kind of an internal process right now?
So through, again, through our specific anti-racism action plan, we have not put that publicly out. I'm sure that we will arrive to a point when we can through the Police Services Board. And so right now, it's not something that I can share, but I certainly can talk to on a presentation, definitely. And you're absolutely right. It's that conversation piece. It's to have that dialogue and keep that conversation open as well. And it's continuously getting that community feedback. And Noor, you did remind me of something. I have an ask of this committee, actually, in that, as I mentioned, we are going through our business planning process. And I did mention to our planning and research team, who does community consultation to inform the business plan, as to whether or not they could come and make a presentation and canvas feedback from your committee to inform York Regional Police's business plan. If you are interested, and I know that they are very interested in receiving that information from you, if I don't know who would reach out to me, but again, if someone from the committee could reach out to me and then I can make those introductions, I think it would be a great contribution for you to contribute to our business plan.
Yeah, maybe Linda can jump in. I'm not 100% sure what the process is for that. But just to kind of respond to your point there, I think definitely having that conversation with community is important. I think it would also be great to be able to see, I guess, what the conversations have led to in terms of action within YRP. So kind of taking those recommendations and seeing how the YRP is acting on that. And I know that you touched on training and how you guys are working on developing training and anti-racism training for your staff as well. And I think that incorporating, or I imagine that, some of the recommendations that the community is making would be relevant to incorporate in that, and making sure that there is a sufficient amount of like racial bias training specifically, and that training that is specific to the context of policing, and making sure that we're talking about the history of policing and also the present of policing in this country and also internationally as well, so that it is specific to the context in which the YRP is working in. So just a couple of points that I wanted to make there. Thank you.
I'll make a comment in that I know that I was part of the initial discussions that led to having YRP be represented at today's meeting. So I'm certainly would put my hand up to continue this conversation in any way that you see fit, Alicia. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other questions or comments? Jenny, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Alicia, for your presentation. I think, I'm not sure if this is a comment or more of a question, but it's kind of linked to what Noor was saying earlier. I believe, Alicia, you mentioned something about kind of community outreach or working on rebuilding public confidence in police, unless I'm mistaken. You mentioned something about working with the public, because obviously we all are aware of how challenging that has been for not just the police, for the public as well, in history in recent times. So I guess what I'm linking it to is earlier in connection with that, when I'm not sure who mentioned it, talking about transparency in some of these processes that you're carrying out, and you said you weren't able to share some of the data. I think that that's kind of a key element when you're talking about instilling that public confidence, is being very transparent, which to as as full as extent as possible, and making people aware. It's always very nice to have the training. It's always very nice to have the community partnerships or the roundtables, but having that transparency in terms of what's working or what's not working, and when you're dismantling these systems that have been in place, like how that's actually going about. So I think that that's also a key element to consider in your plan, in your action plan, as one of the many parts.
Thank you, Jenny, for that comment.
York, the floor is yours.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I really just wanted to second Jenny's point and thank you for raising that.
Thank you, Noor. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? I'd like to call a vote that the presentation regarding York Region Police's Inclusive Policing Action Plan be received, and that the Anti-Black Racism Task Force comments made here regarding York Regional Police's Inclusive Policing Action Plan be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much, Alicia. All right. I think that was the last item that we had on the agenda. And if there are no further comments or questions, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, could we have a mover and a seconder on that?
Of course.
Thank you.
Moved by Jenny and seconded by Elaine.
I'm not
Thank
sure if Shivanji, did you have a comment there, or were you doing the motion?
I did have a comment. I apologize, my network's really bad today. There's lag. I just wanted to ask a quick question of you, Mr. Chair, and the team. I know we discussed about the upcoming Black History Month and some of the info sessions and sessions and flag raising ceremony. I was just wondering if we have any new update on that, anything you'd like to share?
Unless Councillor Kim has any comments, I believe that we had some additional discussions that I guess we will have to speak offline. We hadn't planned to make a presentation for today's public meeting.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. I was thinking about this today, and I did reach out to our communications manager, Carly Smith, who's new in her role. And she has advised that we will have a web presence on the town site and the museum site. Social media messaging will be going out, notice board ads. There is that flag raising and photo opportunity, and Mayor Marakis is going to promote Black History Month on his social feeds, and there's going to be a lawn sign promotional event as well.
Thank you for clarifying that. Much appreciated. Councillor Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I hope that if all of you guys are available for the flag raising on February 1st, you know, it's open to the public, so please feel free to attend. I'm not sure what the regulations are at this time in terms of public gatherings. Tasha, I'm not sure if we can have, if there's a certain number for outdoor gatherings, but you know, I'll keep you guys up to date. But you know, if you guys are available February 1st, I believe it's at 4:30, I believe. But I'll confirm the date, but I believe in time, but I believe it is 4:30.
Thank you, Councillor.
And in terms of the limits on gatherings, well, Doug Ford is going to be announcing the lifting of some restrictions as of the end of the week. So it's unknown right now what those limitations may be for February 1st. Like restaurants apparently are going to open at 50% capacity, gyms as well. Throughout February, there's going to be additional restrictions lifted. So we should know more by the end of this week.
Thank you for clarifying that, Tasha. So it certainly seems like we will be in a good position to have at least an outdoor event. Pretty safe to say that that will go ahead as planned on February 1st. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the task force? Then I'd like to call a vote to adjourn today's meeting. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you at the next meeting.
Thank you.